Hello everybody and welcome to One Piece chapter 1028. This is a chapter that really got me to rethink and reevaluate how close we actually are to the end. The beginning of this chapter really made it seem as if Oda's planting some seeds so that once the Wano domino falls, that'll put us in a fast lane that leads to the end of the series. And so we'll be talking more about what that means in a bit. We get a fantastic color spread this week with Twitch streamers CatBurglar03 and Sniper King 800. And we've seen Usopp wear the 800 before, but in case you don't know what it means, it's basically a pun in Japanese. According to the wiki, it's a reference to the Japanese phrase of Uso Hapyaku, which is a way to describe people that just won't stop lying. And it's also the title of the 25th chapter of the manga. Also, I like how Usopp's french fries say potato. Obviously, we have the Smash Bros going on in the back. I kind of get the impression that if some of these characters are difficult to identify, I think that's intentional, and I think that might be due to copyright reasons. But some of them are pretty obvious to figure out who they are. So we have Frankie as Seth Rogen, and we have Jinbei as Chris Pratt. I know that Luffy is supposed to be Ken from Street Fighter, but I also think that he's a reference to Sun God Nika, because his hair is on fire. I remember seeing some promotional art very similar to this a long time ago for a game that came out exclusively in Japan, and Frankie and Zoro literally looked the same as they do in this page. Also, if Yamato were to be a part of one of these in the future, I have a pretty good idea of which character would fit best. Now, for the purposes of this video, I do want to leave the whole Cypher Pull conversation to the very end, just because I feel like that scene is the scene that will have the biggest, more serious worldwide repercussions. It's a pretty big game changer for me. But in the meantime, we have Dragonform Momonosuke trying to create flame clouds to stop the island's path. And then we also have Yamato, who has decided to go on a little hiking expedition so that Momonosuke can have his solo character development moment. I do have to say that Yamato's full Zoan form looks more like a fox to me than a wolf. Like, the features are just so refined and elegant. I mean, just look at the eyes and the snout, right? Just the entire body, like, it looks delicate, but in a majestic sort of way. It's like something out of a Miyazaki film. Also, I don't see any blood on Yamato's forehead in this full Zoan form, so I'm assuming that maybe the Okuchi no Magami has like some kind of added healing ability. And then of course I never thought about this before, but it's like, wait a minute, Yamato has the power to freeze things. So I'm guessing a solution here would be for her to use her ice on the explosives to stop them from detonating in case the island does make contact with the ground. We go to the life floor and we see that Queen is once again sort of pulling a Doc Ock on Sanji because he's using his metallic limbs to attack him. So he's using his ponytail, he's using his left arm, and he's also using his Brachiosaurus tail. The official translation calls the attack Flying Pan, which is obviously a pun on frying pan. And then, like, the name of the chapter, which is the name of the attack that Queen uses a little bit later, is Brachiosnagus. That's what the official decided to go with. Another translation that I read went with Brachiosaur hiss. And so I thought that was pretty clever. And so the fight kind of resumes with Queen urging Sanji to take him seriously and put on the raid suit. Apparently there's a little bit of jealousy there because Queen tells Sanji, "You used the raid suit against King, didn't you? So why can't you put it on with me?" Because Sanji doesn't like using the raid suit unless he absolutely has to. So Queen is getting more and more frustrated and he uses Brachio coffee, or black coffee, whichever pronunciation you prefer. The Viz calls it black coffee bean, as a pun on black coffee bean. So yeah, there's a bunch of puns going on at the same time with that attack. Anyway, Sanji dodges by jumping into the air, and he comes down with Dia Brichamba Bien Qui Grill Shooter, which is the same attack that we saw him use against the Kraken a very long time ago. Queen kind of praises the attack, but then he also ends up tanking it, and he tells Sanji that if he's not going to put on the raid suit, then he's going to go back to his full Zoan form. And so this is where the jokes start. Because Queen essentially shoots himself out of his own torso. And I don't know if it's because I've read the SBSs and I can just tell that Oda has a very immature sense of humor. Or maybe it's because my mind is in the gutter, but it just kind of seemed like this was a poop joke. Because he shoots himself out of there like a turd, everybody's shocked, and then in the next page, the way that Oda draws him coiled around Sanji, like he literally looks like the emoji in that panel. So yeah, I just kind of feel that that interpretation would align with Oda's sense of humor perfectly. And then Queen also has a line that echoes what Sasaki tells Frankie when he turns into a helicopter. So it's just Oda having fun with dinosaurs. And then the sequence after that is also a joke, because Queen kind of ends up pulling a Katakuri and damages himself using his own rocket launchers. We got everybody's shocked expression when he first goes into snake mode, and I'm over here looking at Marco like, please do something else, Marco. You're too powerful just to be a background character. Like, I get that he believes in the new generation and that he just kind of wants to take a backseat because it's no longer his time, so he just kind of wants to be there for support. But at the same time, it just feels like a giant waste of a first YC level character. So hopefully he does something against the government, which we know is approaching. Like I said, Queen shoots himself twice with his own rocket launchers, which causes him to let go of Sanji, and we see that Sanji's bones have been broken, so he's wobbling and walking like a zombie. But then his bones naturally begin healing and popping back into place, which is a healing ability that Zoro would have found incredibly useful a couple of chapters ago. Now, I think that Sanji, understandably but erroneously, thinks that this is due to him awakening his exoskeleton like his brothers. I think that's wrong. I think that's the wrong assumption to make, and I'm going to tell you why with evidence. So in Whole Cake Island, we find out that when they were very young, Sanji's siblings developed their exoskeletons. Now, the word exo means exterior or outside. So when we say that something has an exoskeleton, what we mean is that their skeleton is on the outside of their body. So for example, spiders, right? Scorpions and crabs, they all have exoskeletons. And we see this with the Vinsmokes, where like they kind of have like this armor on all the time, and it takes special bullets to be able to damage them. Now the reason for why I think Sanji's version of that power has to be different is because if you remember, at one point Sanji fought Yonji during Whole Cake Island, and Yonji's face got messed up, right? And he actually had to go to the mechanic or to the scientist to get it fixed. And so what that means is that Yonji, who has an exoskeleton, does not have the same ability that we see Sanji have in this chapter. Because if Yonji can do what Sanji does in this chapter, then why is he going to the doctor? Also, I want you to look at this panel, which is the panel that we get in the chapter as well. So you notice how Sanji is hitting Ichiji, and Ichiji's not even flinching. It's like Sanji is hitting a statue, which, as we see in this chapter, is not the case with Sanji, because Sanji actually feels pain. And this goes back to his arc in Whole Cake Island, where, like, something that's really stressed is that unlike his brothers, Sanji does have these feelings, and that's kind of what helps make him who he is, and that's why Luffy values him as a crew member. And so by the end of this chapter, we can clearly see that Sanji is worried about not being able to feel anything anymore, and becoming like an emotionless robot, like one of his brothers. And so because being able to feel emotional pain and being able to connect with others via that pain is a big part of Sanji's character, I just don't think it's going to happen. Like, I think he's worrying over nothing. And especially because if that were to happen, you're also kind of like throwing his mom's sacrifice out the window. I mean, that's why Zora died, so that Sanji could feel. And so with that in mind, if we go to the final page of the chapter, we notice that even though Queen breaks his sword on Sanji, right? Even though the blade shatters, if you look at Sanji's face by the end of this, his face is like this. And so even though the attack didn't hurt Sanji as much as it should have, it did do something to Sanji's face. So it's like, you know, dented, pretty much like Yonji's face. But unlike Yonji, I totally expect Sanji's face to go back to normal by itself. I expect, you know, him to heal in the next chapter. He'll be back to normal very, very soon. But even beyond that, the most important part of this, to me at least, is the fact that when Queen hits Sanji with the sword, Sanji actually yells. He says, ouch! And so again, even though the attack doesn't destroy him, he can still feel the pain. And that's why he yells out. He says, ouch! Right? So that hurts. So if this were like one of his brothers, I seriously doubt that his brothers would yell out in pain. Because they're like robots, right? Judge took away their feelings. And Sanji was the exception to that. So he can still feel pain. And so, you know, he's worried about like turning into a monster, but it's just not going to happen. So I've said this before, but I do think that the resolution to Sanji's character arc is going to be about him embracing
some of the positives of his Germa heritage, right? Because it's not all bad, right? You know, you have like the technological advancements, you have like the advanced science that his family, you know, gave him in the form of a raid suit. So I do hope that Sanji eventually does put it on. It's kind of like what happens to all of us at some point, where like we all come from a family. Families are not perfect. They make mistakes. And so as we get older, we have to make decisions about what we take with us from our families, right? So, you know, as we venture into adulthood, we're like, okay, well, I learned these things that were healthy from my family, so I'm going to take them with me. But then I also learned like some unhealthy things from my family, so I'm not going to take them with me, or at least I'm going to try to challenge those unhealthy things. So yeah, that's where I see Sanji's character arc going. You know, I think that he's going to reach a point where he's going to understand that his bloodline or his, you know, heritage doesn't define who he is, and that putting on a raid suit is not unhealthy. And actually, in the official translation, after Sanji's bones get crushed, he says that it hurts, but that he can still move fine. So the pain is there, and that's what sets him aside from his brothers, is that he can feel. So it's there in both occasions, in the broken bones part, and then in the sword part. And so in addition to this new healing ability that Sanji gets, he also has to get some kind of like offensive power boost, because there's this page where Sanji is looking up at Queen, and he actually says there's got to be a way to break through his dino toughness, or there has to be a way that I can pierce his skin, that I could get through his skin. And so whether it's the raid suit or a new power-up, like he needs a boost when it comes to attack power. Now I want to go back to the panel of Queen squeezing Sanji, because I think it's very important. So the first thing is what Queen is saying. He tells Sanji that even masters of armament hockey cannot prevent broken bones and ruptured organs from this amount of pressure. And so that got me to think about Kid, and how Kid was using pressure against Kaido on the rooftop. And so I'm wondering if that's what he was trying to do, to crush Kaido with pressure. Now what's even more interesting to me is that if you look above Queen and Sanji in that very same panel, you'll notice some spirals, some weird, you know, curls, like some whirlpools coming out of this pain that Sanji is experiencing. Like they literally look like the patterns of a devil fruit coming out of Sanji. I want to read you this quote, which I think is very relevant to what we're discussing. So this is volume 7, and Oda gets asked, why do Sanji's eyebrows circle up at the end? Is it a fashion statement? And then Oda responds by saying, hey, you there, sit down. Now listen, everyone lives in circles. The sun, the moon, and the earth all spin in circles. And if the earth suddenly stopped spinning, the planet would be covered in tidal waves. It would be terrible. Now remember that Sanji's eyebrow channels that same powerful circular energy. So at first glance, it kind of seems as if Oda's making a joke, but then you think about it a little bit more, and he's actually referencing gravity and tidal forces, which are real, you know, forces in our universe, right? Like they have an effect on the celestial bodies in our solar system and all across the universe. And so I thought about that, and you know, because he's talking about like gravity and stuff, and I remember that Kaku, or like during Enies Lobby, when Kaku and Khalifa are about to eat their devil fruits, there is a comment made about how like they feel like this source of energy coming from the devil fruits that is like gravity. And so we obviously know that devil fruits have these swirls, these spirals on them, just like Sanji's eyebrows. So now I'm thinking like, is this actually related to like, you know, some very important lore of the One Piece verse? He mentions the sun and the moon, and those two things are super important, right? Because of sun god Nika and the moon. Like, don't get me started on the moon. And then in another SPS, Oda said that once Vegapunk enters the story, he will explain the true nature of devil fruits, right? Like, he will explain what they are and how they came to be. And so because of Queen being a scientist and him being connected to Judge, Caesar, and possibly Vegapunk, I am now thinking about the possibility of what those swirls, what those spirals mean in the panel where Sanji is awakening his power. Like, is Sanji's new power connected in some way, shape, or form to Vegapunk's research on devil fruits? Because if that's the case, then we can begin getting a lot of devil fruit lore just from this fight alone. What are devil fruits? Where did they come from? At one point, Queen tells Sanji, "Are you a Lunarian? Because you can use fire this way?" Sanji says no, but it's like, I'm assuming that Lunarians were probably the first people to use devil fruits. Maybe they created devil fruits. But yeah, I just saw those spirals floating above Sanji, and I just thought, man, Sanji might be connected to the mystery behind the nature of devil fruits. All right, so now I just want to share this picture that my sister found on a One Piece Facebook group. And then there's a panel at the bottom where Zoro says, "What kind of Yonko is this?" And Sanji's like, "I don't want to be a monster." All right, so now I can go on to talk about the cipher pull section of the chapter.
Okay, so I'm looking at the ships that are approaching the island, and they don't look like marine ships. This is the way that a marine ship looks like, so if you compare this to what we get in the chapter, you'll see some differences. So I'm assuming that these are ships that are reserved for cipher pull. Another very important thing to remember here is that according to Kaido, Wano is a natural stronghold because of its waterfalls and the mountains that surround them. So because of that, the Marines and the government can't get in as easily as they would want to. Now we currently also know that Wano only has 2 entrances. The first one is the Carp waterfall that Luffy and some of the Straw Hats took to get there, and then the other one is a secret passage through another waterfall that leads to an elevator. So I'm really curious which entrance they're going to be using, or if they're just going to start surrounding the entire island. Because if they actually go for the Carp entrance, they're probably going to run into the Big Mom pirates there, because Smoothie and some of her other siblings didn't get to go up the waterfall. So Smoothie might actually end up doing something very useful. However, regardless of whether Smoothie and her siblings put up a fight or not, I do think that at one point or another, Lucci definitely has to run into Who's Who. There's so much history between these two cats, so I'm definitely expecting a feline reunion in the near future. Now there are 2 orders that Lucci talks about, and the first one I think kind of serves to confirm like a bit of a theory and speculation that I've had for a very long time. So he basically says that if Kaido falls, the world government is going to take over Wano, whether people like it or not. Like, it's non-negotiable. And so I said this a long time ago, but the impression that I got from the story was that the world government was actually secretly depending on the Yonko to stop each other and to stop other pirates from eventually reaching the One Piece. So that's why I feel like the government has always kind of been able to like rest easy, because they have 4 of the most powerful pirates sort of blocking the way for anyone that wants to get their hands on the One Piece. And so if Kaido gets defeated, then that entire structure will begin to collapse. And so that's why the government is saying like, yeah, we can't let that happen. We have this system in place as a failsafe, as a way of preventing people from getting to Laugh Tale. So if Kaido falls, we'll be taking over Wano, thank you very much. The government's getting nervous, man. They're getting real nervous over the outcome of this fight. It also kind of gets me to think about how Kaido came into power in the first place, where Orochi was approached by this random old lady, Higurashi, and Higurashi was saying some really weird celestial dragon type stuff. Like she was essentially giving Orochi the Doflamingo speech about how justice is the advantage of the strong. So we know that Doflamingo was a celestial dragon, and so it kind of gets me to think that maybe this old lady already had an affiliation with the world government, and that maybe she was just trying to manipulate Orochi to bring Kaido in the first place so that the world government didn't have to worry about Wano. And that brings us to the second order, which is to capture Nico Robin. And so that takes us back to the Zoe arc, and man, I love Zoe. It's so rich in regards to foreshadowing. It's crazy. And so in Zoe, there's a scene where Nekomamushi tells Robin that he's worried about her because since she has the ability to decipher the poneglyphs, she might be targeted for kidnapping. And then Robin responds by saying that she's not worried about that because she has friends that will protect her. And so what's crazy is that after she says that, there are several Straw Hats that actually declare that they will be protecting Robin. And those Straw Hats are Chopper, Frankie, Brook, Usopp, and Nami. And so what do these Straw Hats have in common? Well, in addition to Jinbei, these are the characters whose fights are already over and who appear to be relatively okay. Like, they're running around, they're doing other things. They're not too busy, so they're not like 1v1ing anyone like the Monster Trio is. So Robin's protection will probably depend on the Straw Hats that are not part of the Monster Trio. Also, we know that Oda recently said that the story is in its final stage. And so with that in mind, I think it's important to remember that by the end of Dressrosa, we get a direct declaration from the narrator saying that the Straw Hat Grand Fleet will be involved in a major incident that will go down in history. That event has not happened yet, and I think the ending of Wano is when it will go down. Because remember, Luffy does tell the fleet, if we feel like we're in danger, if we feel like we need help in the future, we will call for you. The government is at Wano's doorstep. Luffy will be half dead after his fight with Kaido. Zoro's going to be suffering from the side effects of the mink medication. What better moment could there be for the Straw Hat Grand Fleet to show up and give the Straw Hats a hand?
Now, here's the thing, all right? I love Robin as a character, okay? I think she's great. However, from a story standpoint, I almost feel like it's my responsibility to say that we technically don't need Robin to get to Laugh Tale. Let me repeat this. We technically don't need Robin to get to Laugh Tale. If it turns out that Tenkuyama Hitetsu is Oden's father, if it turns out that he is in fact Sukiyaki, then that also means that he can read the poneglyphs. Because according to Oden, the ability to read the poneglyphs has been passed down from father to son for generations. So if Hitetsu is Oden's dad, we can, find a way of reading the poneglyphs with his help. The other way that we have to getting to Laugh Tale without Robin is by getting a member of the Three-Eyed Tribe with an awakened eye, and they can also decipher the poneglyphs as well. We still don't know what these people with the eye symbol are. They might be members of the Three-Eyed Tribe, but who knows? Regardless, the point that I'm trying to make is that there are ways of reading the poneglyphs and getting to Laugh Tale without Robin, okay? Now, why am I saying this? I don't think that CP0 is enough to capture Robin. Like, I don't think Cypher Pull is going to be enough to be able to kidnap Robin. I don't see that happening. However, if there is an admiral aboard those ships coming to Wano, that's going to be a problem, boys. Now let's backtrack a little bit. So when the Marines first got word of Big Mom and Kaido forming an alliance, right? Kizaru asked Akainu, do you want me to go? And technically speaking, Akainu never said, no, don't go. He just said, wait. He basically tells Kizaru, we have to be strategic about it because we don't know how strong the samurai are. And I think that mainly that is due to Ryuma, because if you remember, Gyukimaru at one point tells Zoro that a long time ago, Wano was known as the land of gold by many, and that nobles wanted to take over the land of Wano because of its gold. But Ryuma was just so strong with the sword that he basically intimidated every single foreign invader to stay the heck out of Wano. So Akainu was kind of thinking about that when he was talking to Kizaru. So he basically was saying, like, let's be strategic about this first, Borsalino. And then it's important to remember that the Marines are technically government employees. So we can definitely have a situation where Cypher Pol gets involved. They go in there, and then we also get an admiral in Wano as well. I think it's time that we get that final admiral design reveal. He could be coming in incognito, like undercover, because remember when we first got introduced to Fujitora, like we just thought that he was an old man gambling in Dressrosa. And depending on what happens with Big Mom, if Kaido gets defeated, I think that you would only need like 2 admirals to be able to steamroll into Wano and take over it very, very easily. So here's what I'm thinking. If an admiral shows up, or admirals show up, Luffy and Zoro are going to be half dead. They're going to ask for help. Straw Hat Grand Fleet, come and help us, and let's try and defend Robin and just kind of leave Wano. Now, if that doesn't work and Robin gets captured, this is where people are going to start splitting up into groups, I think. And this is going to, tie into like what Oda has been saying recently very constantly, which is that we're nearing the end, One Piece is nearing its final stage, all that stuff. Because if Robin gets captured, right, and she gets taken to Marijoa, right, if the government takes her, and by the way, this is very important. In this chapter, Rob Lucci says to the other ZP0 guy, don't kill Robin, we want her alive. So they're not going to kill her, okay? That's very important to note that even if she does get captured, she's not in any immediate danger. So if Robin does get captured, Luffy is not just going to take it sitting down. There's probably going to be a group of people that chases after Robin, and then another group of people is probably going to be responsible with finding the last road poneglyph. So we'll get the one in Wano, and then a group of people will probably go and find the fourth and final one. Another thing that we have to consider is that something happened to Sabo. Whether he's captured by the government or whether he's about to be executed, whatever it is, he's in a pretty bad situation. So if Luffy finds out about that, and then on top of that, they capture Robin, we are going to go back to Marijoa, right? Which actually, that direction goes along with the theory and the speculation that Laugh Tale might not be in the New World at all. Maybe it's in the first half. Okay, so we might end up having to go back anyway. Remember, Oda said that the final war arc of One Piece will make Marineford look cute. And so if they're already planning on executing Sabo, right, and if they capture Robin, then that arc would literally be like an Enies Lobby in addition to a Marineford combined. And like you have worldwide players all coming to the Red Line to fight, to help Luffy out. Obviously, I don't think anyone wants One Piece's ending to be rushed, but one of the things that really stood out to me was how Oda handled Jax and Perospero's defeat. Because you can tell that he really is speeding a lot of these things up. And with what we see in this chapter, with the government's involvement already outside of Wano, I'm trying to think of a way, you know, of like Oda being able to kill two birds with one stone, where maybe like after Wano, one group goes with Vegapunk, another group goes to Elbaf, and then another group goes to rescue Sabo and Robin. It just feels like Oda is setting up the board so that he can really step on the gas after Wano is over. So I'm kind of thinking of like, you know, I think that Wano is probably going to be the last normal arc of the series, and that after this, we're going to have like different people going to different places, moving around, going all over the place, trying to get different side quests done. And then eventually it's all going to sort of intersect with fighting the Blackbeard pirates, with rescuing Sabo and possibly Robin. And it's also going to intersect in Marijoa, especially since we know that Shanks is about to enter the story. He's about to make his move. And we suspect that Shanks has an ability to move around the world in a way that isn't normal. So if Shanks has some kind of a method that allows him to move from point A to point B a lot faster than it would regularly take, then I think we're going to be doing a speed run after Wano until we get to the end. Also, given the fact that Robin's goal, her dream, is to literally uncover the major spoilers of the series, even from a marketing standpoint, it would be more convenient for Oda to have that reveal only come at the very end. So I don't really see an issue with Robin being taken away from the crew temporarily. I could just imagine a scene where Robin is about to be kidnapped by an admiral or something, and then all of a sudden we hear, "Sabless! Oi, who told you you can touch Miss Whole Sunday?" I mean, he did say he was going to go to the New World. Post Wano is going to be insane. That is going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed this chapter. The beginning portion of it kind of reminded me of like the in-between sections when we get like world building news and all that stuff. That's what it felt like for me. It felt a little bit like Reverie. So yeah, I just got super excited about that. You know, a lot of really important, really serious implications come from that little section. So that was a great surprise because like it introduces tension and stakes, which, you know, as I've commented before, and I think as a lot of you agree, that's kind of what has been missing from the arc. So, or at least this section of the arc. So I really, really appreciated that. Great breath of fresh air. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.